Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and today another very detailed weather update coming your way. We're going to be talking about some heavy rainfall that's expected to materialise over the northeastern parts of New South Wales and southeastern Queensland over the coming couple of days. We're also going to be talking about some heavy rainfall up in far north Queensland. We've also got a massive desert rainfall situation that's expected to inundate South Australia, Queensland, New South Wales, and even parts of Victoria and the Northern Territory with very heavy rainfall next weekend, and that's likely to also deliver some very heavy falls to coastal parts of New South Wales and Queensland as well. A lot to get through on that front. We're also going to be talking about some very heavy rainfall for Western Australia, and we can't be forgetting the cold snap that currently, all of that plus more coming up in today's weather forecast. And if you are brand new to the channel, please do consider subscribing and also leave a like on the video. Well, what's driving the weather for the next 2 days? I have to start things off with this high pressure system over in the Great Australian Bight. It's funneling this heavy rainfall along a trough line through the central parts of the Northern Territory into Queensland. You can already start to see some thunderstorms over the central parts of the territory, now moving into the central parts of Queensland between Mount Isa and Birdsville. It was brought to my attention that yesterday was the Birdsville Bash Day, or Saturday was the Birdsville Bash Day, and that's where Birdsville, one of the nation's most remote towns, population of only 100, swells to 9,000, with people coming from all over Queensland, New South Wales, and the nation for that matter, to have a look at this massive event that goes on in Birdsville. And if this was to happen next weekend, they would be in a world of trouble, and I'm going to talk about that right now. This heavy rainfall is going to be streaming in through Queensland. It's not going to be too heavy for a lot of communities. It's just going to be light to moderate stuff throughout the course of today, with a couple of thunderstorms embedded in it. But by Tuesday morning, we're going to be seeing this rainfall start to get itself closer to the Sunshine Coast and then the southeastern corner of Queensland, impacting areas such as Gladstone, Rockhampton, Bundaberg, Hervey Bay, and as far south as Brisbane for that matter. And once it gets itself close to the coast, the trough is going to develop into a full-blown low-pressure system, and on the backside of this low-pressure system, there's going to be a nice onshore flow, and that means moderate to heavy showers and thunderstorms are going to be inundating the northeastern New South Wales coastline, anywhere north of Newcastle by the looks of things, but they will be heavily concentrated around Grafton and Coffs Harbour. We're also going to be talking about that onshore flow for parts of southeastern Queensland, including the Gold Coast, the Brisbane coastline, and the Sunshine coastline, right up towards Bundaberg. We're going to be talking about moderate to heavy showers there throughout the course of Tuesday. So it really only is tomorrow at this time where some heavy rainfall is expected to materialise over this part of Queensland and New South Wales. It's not going to be ridiculously heavy in the sense we're going to be talking about a flooding situation, but tomorrow take extra care on those roads. They will be hazardous, with some intermittent, very heavy downpours expected throughout the course of the day. We're also going to be talking about the potential for some flash flooding with these very heavy thunder showers that are going to be embedded in this onshore flow for the northeastern parts of New South Wales. We know how wet Grafton and Coffs Harbour and those hills around it are, and any more rainfall that they are going to get will just result into runoff. And if we're talking about accumulations up towards 100 millimetres, which is totally possible throughout the course of Tuesday, this rainfall should be easing off by Wednesday afternoon. We're going to be talking about the chance of flash flooding in locations, the rainfall extending as far south as Sydney. They've got some chance of some heavy showers tomorrow as well. I believe the Bureau of Meteorology has highlighted the chance of 15 millimetres on the forecast, but that might have changed this morning. We're looking still, though, for some relatively heavy rainfall around that part, all powered by this low pressure system in the Tasman Sea and that onshore flow from the low pressure system that's going to be offshore from Fraser Island up north of Brisbane in the southeastern part of Queensland. Now, in terms of rainfall accumulation over the next 3 days, we're not talking about ridiculous accumulation, certainly nothing above 120 millimetres or so, which is what I classify as flooding rainfall. 40 millimetres, though, still possible outside of Emerald, Rolleston, Dingo, down towards Taroom. And then as you get towards the Sunshine Coast outside of Gympie, we're looking at about 30 millimetres there. And there'll be isolated pockets outside of Gladstone and Bundaberg that get up to 50 millimetres of rainfall. Fraser Island expecting widespread 40 millimetre totals as well over the next 3 days. The majority of that falling on Tuesday, but still a little bit of rainfall expected Wednesday. Along the coastline, the rainfall accumulations will be much higher. Down towards Coffs Harbour, we're talking about rainfall accumulations up to 115 millimetres. Coffs Harbour itself expecting 40, but that can swing wildly with just one or two heavy showers, and they will be slow moving down here as well, so expecting some good rainfall to occur in one or two locations down here, and that's why the Eastern Relief model has highlighted the possibility of over 100 millimetres. The Access G3 a lot more conservative in terms of rainfall, but it's an identical picture in terms of where it spreads, so I have great confidence in what's going to be happening here. The GFS as well, a lot more conservative in terms of rainfall yet again. However, it is a low resolution model and it just can't crank out the data that the other forecast models can. Now, the rain rainfall that's going to be happening in the next 10 days, I'm not going to jump into it straight away, but just a heads up, we're talking about up to 250 millimetres offshore from the northeastern New South Wales coastline. It's a huge amount of rainfall that is possible over the next 10 days, and certainly something that I'm going to be talking about. But while we're on the topic of Queensland, we're just going to take a quick look up in far north Queensland. You can see over the next 10 days, good accumulations possible up there. Still outside of Innisfail and Tully, we're looking at 130 millimetres of rainfall, and I did say the majority of that will be happening from this onshore flow that's going to start itself up from Thursday and continue through Friday and then into Saturday morning as well. The rainfall, probably expecting 50 millimetres or so from Thursday afternoon through to about Saturday afternoon. The showers easing off through Sunday, but still they will be hanging around, and then come at next week. Still a couple of showers, but nothing too heavy and nothing too consistent either. A few showers also happening around the course of today for this part of far north Queensland between Cardwell up towards the Daintree and Cooktown, but those showers easing off throughout the course of today, and the rainfall should kind of give this area a bit of a miss until about Thursday, when the rainfall looks to pipe up there again. The Axis G3 calling for quite a bit of rainfall as well. It's a lot more widespread actually, and it makes it a little bit further inland. In fact, communities around Atherton and Ravenshoe could also expect about 20 millimetres of rainfall. Further inland, the rainfall will be very much hit and miss, and about 70 or 80 millimetres along the coastline. That's a very good forecast, might I add. I think the Eastern Reserve might be just a little bit too bullish. Now we're going to continue to the main story, and this is this huge swathe of desert that's covered by pretty heavy rainfall by the looks of things. It's going to be starting up in around 5 days from now. That's Thursday or Friday. We're going to be seeing these showers and storms start to fire up from a low pressure system and a trough that's going to be lining the Northern Territory South Australia border. These showers and thunderstorms will be very widespread. They won't be concentrated into one area. They will be light and moderate, and just a few bolts of lightning are expected here and there. They'll be very hit and miss as well until about Saturday morning, when you see here from the Friday night energy burst that we're going to be seeing over the this part of Queensland, South Australia, the Northern Territory, and even into New South Wales. We're going to see from Saturday morning these showers and storms become a lot more concentrated across parts of central Queensland, central South Australia, and southeastern Northern Territory and northwestern New South Wales. We're going to see these showers and storms become a little bit more concentrated there, and communities such as Alice Springs, Mount Isa, Birdsville, Moomba, Coober Pedy, Minterby, Roxby Downs, and even towards Broken Hill in New South Wales can be expecting isolated showers and thunderstorms from about Friday evening right through into Saturday. And then what's going to happen here is this is all going to combine into one big cloud and become this huge rain swathe. Well, not one big cloud, but you know what I'm saying. It's going to be a big rain swathe moving through this part of Queensland, South Australia and New South Wales. Still powered by this low pressure system here and moving forward from this high pressure system over South Australia. And that's how it's going to get its direction and moving through New South Wales. This system won't have heavy rainfalls in it. You can see rainfall accumulations averaging about 6 or 7 millimetres every 3 hours. So it's only about 3 or 4 millimetres an hour. Isolated heavier pockets are expected in some areas, especially around the low pressure core. But considering it's going to be such a huge swathe, we're expecting hours upon hours of rainfall to fall across this part of Queensland, South Australia and New South Wales. Starting early Sunday morning and continuing right through Sunday and into early Monday evening, even in towards Tuesday morning by the looks of things, when it starts to get itself closer to New South Wales and Queensland. And that's where it leads off nicely into very heavy rainfall that we're expected across southeast Queensland and northeastern New South Wales next week. In terms of rainfall accumulations over the next 10 days, you can see we're talking up towards 40-50 millimetres for a huge swathe of New South Wales, Queensland and South Australia. We're also expecting isolated pockets up towards 20 or 30 millimetres in the Northern Territory. Alice Springs only expecting 2 or 3 millimetres there. The opal mining communities in South Australia only a couple of millimetres, and it'll be very hit and miss rainfall. But the bigger communities such as Ceduna expecting 20 millimetres, Roxby Downs expecting a hot 40 millimetres of rainfall, in fact up to 50 millimetres there. Lake Eyre is also expecting around 20 millimetres. Moomba expecting half of its annual rainfall with looks like 30 or 40 millimetres there, so a very good accumulation. Birdsville, the rainfall will be hit and miss, but still expecting a couple of millimetres here and there. And then into parts of the pastoral leases in Queensland, we're looking at widespread 30 millimetres plus, and some pockets that will get up towards 50 or 60 millimetres, maybe even 70 millimetres for some lucky farmers out there. Broken Hill expecting 30 millimetres in New South Wales, and the rainfall will be widespread through a lot of New South Wales, extending as far over as Moree. So all of the pastoral and the agricultural communities in the northern parts of New South Wales and the western parts of New South Wales expecting a very good amount of rainfall, and it almost almost makes it to Victoria, but not quite. The drought will continue there. Speaking of drought conditions, currently there is a little bit of drought-like conditions currently being experienced by quite a big swathe of South Australia, to be honest. But if I was to drag this forward to about what's this, Monday, you can see the drought conditions completely ease off there. And the majority of Australia actually really quite well out of drought conditions by the looks of things. It's looking really healthy there, which is some very good news indeed. Soil moisture anomalies across a lot of New South Wales, Queensland, and even into South Australia as well, expected to be sky high. So any more rainfall on top of this, we're looking at a flooding event. I guarantee you there will be rivers that run up towards minor or moderate flooding levels from this weather event. So any more rainfall in this part of New South Wales, Queensland, and South Australia will result in some significant flooding. And like I said, major flooding also possible from this rainfall event. There's going to be a lot of rainfall, and these rivers are already running quite high from the wet season, pulling in a lot of moisture from the Great Dividing Range. So it looks like there's going to be some very good rainfall, some very good flooding, I should say, flowing in towards Lake Eyre. That's certainly enough on the Central Queensland, South Australia, New South Wales rainfall event. Any more questions or comments regarding this event? If I've left anything unanswered, then please do leave it in the comment section down below. I look forward to responding to all of your questions. Just to finish off with the eastern states, or at least the tropical parts of the eastern states, I know it's already dragged out a long way, but we're talking about some heavy rainfall as well next Tuesday and Wednesday as this low pressure system gets itself jammed up on the coastline. We're going to be talking about this low pressure area, which is a bit of an uncertainty on the forecast, but the other forecast models are well and truly on board with it. We're still talking about some heavy rainfall that's possible again early next week into the middle parts of next week, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, the 8th, 9th, and 10th of July. We're going to be talking about some heavy rainfall accumulations up there. And this is all going to equate to 10-day rainfall accumulations up towards 250 millimetres out, offshore from Coffs Harbour and the northeastern parts of New South Wales. Now, this does remain offshore, but remember, 250 millimetres onshore in this part of northeastern New South Wales after the rainfall that they have had will cause very significant problems. So we're going to have to keep a very close eye on the rainfall, especially from this Central Australia weather event, because it is going to be a significant one, and we do need to be keeping, like I said, a very close eye on this weather event up here. But anyways, that is more than enough talk on rainfall. We're going to now talk about the cold conditions that have plagued the southern parts of Australia throughout the course of this morning. It's been a bitterly cold start. Conditions only now just starting to warm up at this time, but you can see Falls Creek, Mount Buller, and even down towards Mount Baw in Victoria, we're looking at minus 3 degrees Celsius temperatures still, and it's approaching lunchtime at this time as well. Thredbo minus 5 after a bitterly cold minus 7 overnight, and conditions aren't going to rise above freezing for a lot of areas in this part of Victoria and New South Wales. Thankfully, you've only got one more night of these absolutely awful freezing cold conditions. Tomorrow morning will be freezing cold. We're talking about temperatures as low as minus 5 degrees once again for the mountainous communities in Victoria and New South Wales, minus 5, minus 6 in places, and sub-zero or very close to 0 degrees for a lot of the agricultural communities around New South Wales. You can see 2 or 3 degrees. It's going to be a big frost morning for Victoria and agricultural parts of New South Wales, especially in the deep south of the state. We're also talking about a big frost day for South Australia. There's a chance of brown rot along the Mount Lofty ranges, and also as far north as some of those canola and wheat growing fields along the Eyre Peninsula, I believe that's its name. We're also talking about some freezing cold conditions into the Northern Territory and even into Western Australia as well, powered by some pretty bitterly cold easterly conditions as well. So it's going to be freezing cold, all powered by this strong high pressure system offshore from Tasmania, and only the west coast of Tasmania is going to have a little bit of relief from an onshore breeze, so conditions won't be as cold there. Even Wednesday morning looking really cold still, but those conditions do start to thaw out a little bit for New South Wales. Victoria, however, still close to 0 or sub-zero in some places. Melbourne expecting a bitterly cold 2 degrees, and the mountains outside of Melbourne expecting to go below 0. And that high pressure system over the top of Tasmania will probably provide Tasmania with its coldest night of the year. Into South Australia and the Northern Territory, sub-0 degree temperatures, but they will be shooed away by a strong cold front expected to impact the southwest coast of Western Australia in just a couple of days from now, next Tuesday, or tomorrow actually on Tuesday. Still freezing cold conditions in the northern parts of South Australia. South South Australia can get bitterly cold this time of the year. It's not so much supported by the other forecast models, but still freezing cold conditions. So just a heads up, it's going to be a big frost week. Hopefully things easing off by the weekend for New South Wales. Victoria, they might take a little bit longer, and Tasmania certainly longer still, considering of its southern prominence. But yeah, by come around this weekend, the conditions will be a lot more pleasant, that's for sure. Well, fingers crossed they will be a lot more pleasant, because I can tell you right now, these way below zero temperatures do not sound appealing whatsoever. It'll be Western Australia's turn after that, mark my words, before another powerful cold front, which we're going to talk about right now, makes its way through. Just pull the weather forecast back to today. We're expecting a strong cold front, or a cold front of some pretty significant magnitude, to make its crossing of the southwest coast sometime early tomorrow morning for the Perth area, and also into the southwest Capes. We're expecting a little bit of thunder and lightning throughout the course of Monday evening into early Tuesday morning. So from tonight, we're also expecting some decent falls around the Perth metro area over the next 3 days, up towards 10 or 15 millimetres possible. No, on this forecast, only about 10 millimetres possible, but other forecast models suggesting a little bit more rainfall. So I'd say 10 millimetres or so for the Perth metro area sometime early tomorrow morning is certainly plausible. If we were to pull it forward to the 10-day forecast, you can see quite a lot more rainfall now on the forecast of the southwest corner of Western Australia, all powered by a strong cold front that's expected to make its passage sometime next weekend, probably about Saturday night, early Sunday morning. It's going to be one of those hokey-pokey, hunky-dory cold fronts, the really weird ones that we've been seeing this year, where its low-pressure engine is well towards the south of the Australian continent, and it's drawing in moisture from the northern parts of the Indian Ocean. So it's going to be a really weird one once again. And of course, to those watching in the Murchison or the Gascoyne, expect an absolute drenching once again, 50 millimetres or more possible, and that is more woes once again to all the road workers and people that want to use the roads up in the Murchison or the Gascoyne, because they're going to be closed off and they're going to be destroyed left, right and centre. But it looks like a decent cold front coming through Saturday night for the Perth metro area. A little bit of rainfall expected to start from early Saturday evening into late Saturday evening. It shouldn't be too heavy, only looking at moderate to, in pockets, heavy falls here. Some very strong winds are expected as well. We're going to be talking about wind gusts up towards 70 or 80 kilometres an hour for the Perth metro area. Well, that's in knots. We better change that to kilometres an hour. And down towards the southwest Capes, a lot stronger, up towards 110 kilometres an hour down there. So it's certainly going to be a damaging wind event, that's for sure. But the rainfall doesn't look like it's going to be too much of a concern. A second cold front moving through Sunday afternoon. It shouldn't have too much in the way of heavy rainfall or damaging winds. And then another cold front looks like it's going to sweep through sometime early next week, once again with a monstrous moisture band that's going to be inundating the Gascoyne and the Murchison. And if we were to take a look at 10-day rainfall accumulations, we're still talking about accumulations up towards 70 or 80 millimetres for parts of the Gascoyne, into the Murchison, and even into the northern wheat belt as well, around Killarney, Dalwallinu and Murchison. We're still expecting, Morawah rather, we're still expecting around 20 or 30 millimetres in pockets there. But yeah, it is certainly going to be deeper into the Murchison, where we're looking at 60 or 70 millimetres. That is just woes for all the people working on the roads or requiring the roads to leave up there, because they're just going to be shut off left, right and centre. So to all the grey nomads in central parts of Western Australia, around Gascoyne Junction, Murchison, Meekatharra, Kew, Mount Magnet, and as far north as Mount Augustus, I do expect road closures over the coming couple of days as this weather system makes its crossing, or sometime early next week. So make sure you do pay extra care to the roads and also to the road authorities, because they will be shutting roads off left, right and centre. The southwest Capes also expecting a good drop or two, up towards 60 or 70 millimetres there. Darling Ranges up to 60 millimetres, and parts of the south coastal region as well, 60 or 70 millimetres. Perth over the next 10 days around 35 millimetres. Remember, about 5 to 10 of that falling on Tuesday. So 25 millimetres from the cold fronts that are going to be making passage through next weekend and into early next week. That's not bad going. We could do with a little bit more rainfall around now. It has been relatively dry over the past 2 weeks, but I'm not going to complain about 25 millimetres. Parts of the western wheatbelt also expecting around 10 to 20 millimetres. That's good rainfall that they do need. Around Katanning as well, much needed 20 millimetres or so there, but it's going to be the eastern parts of the wheatbelt this time that do miss out. Anywhere from a line of Mora down towards Dowra and Merredon, Corrigan towards Hyde and Lake Grace, Ravensthorpe, Salmon Gums, and down towards Esperance, looking at a drier than usual cold front situation. Only a couple of millimetres expected there, and you can see on the drought map they're already starting to get themselves into severe drought conditions, which is certainly quite concerning, and unfortunately they don't seem to ease off too much. Still drought conditions expected after this cold front, minor to mild drought conditions around Katanning and Mount Barker, so we will have to keep a very close eye on things. But yeah, it's certainly some much needed rainfall now coming in for the southwestern corner of Western Australia. And that is a great send off to the end to end this video. Thank you so much for watching to this point. Your support is greatly appreciated. For those of you that are interested in a major hurricane barreling across the Atlantic Basin in towards the Lesser Antilles, there's coverage on the CyclonesOZ channel. There's a link on that on the screen right now to that, and your support to that is also greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for watching the video. Thank you so much to the channel sponsors. I could not be running this show without them, and their support is, like I said, greatly appreciated. That is all from me today, and I'll catch you all in the next storm.